Hey there, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're going to give other participants another minute or two to join, but in the meantime, welcome to Upswing's Academic Superstar webinar. And if you want, you can drop your name and what college or university you attend in the chat. All right, Houston Community College, Fayetteville, University of Memphis, Richmond Community College. Austin Community College, BMCC, Shaw University. Winston-Salem State. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Shane Cronin. I am the Tutor and Operations Specialist at Upswing. Thank you so much for joining us for Upswing's Academic Superstar Workshop. And really hosting the workshop tonight is Shanique Edwards. She is one of Upswing's most longtime tutors. She's been with Upswing for nearly 10 years. She's got an incredible academic background that includes everything from French to biochemistry to being a TA at the college level. And so I'm going to go ahead and kick it off over to her. But first, just a couple of housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded, and tomorrow we will send out the recording to all participants, so you don't have to worry about that. And also, just a reminder to please keep the chat respectful. And at the end of the webinar, we are going to open up the floor to questions, and we will do our best to answer as many of those questions as we can. So thank you very much. And Shanique, I'll kick it over to you.
Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Shanique. As Shane said, I've been an Upswing tutor for over 10 years. I tutor biology, chemistry, biochemistry, and French. And I really love working with students. I love seeing you make connections and like come to your own revelation. So it's exciting to be here with you tonight. We have a preliminary poll to get an idea of who's in the room with us. Can we get that poll up? And just to make sure you can hear me, if you can hear me, put a heart react either in the chat or use the Zoom reactions. Great. All right. We're going to give you a few more minutes for the poll just to see where you are in your academic journey. If if one of these categories doesn't apply to you, tell us in the chat where you are. Okay. Are you ready for poll results? The poll should pop up in your Zoom. Someone's asking where's the poll. There's also, depending on what version of Zoom you have, there's a tab that says polls/quizzes. Okay, can we take a look at the poll results? All right, so most of you are community college students. Shout out to the community college students. We have quite a few traditional college students. We have a few high school students, a couple of people who are returning after break, some graduate students, and then some professors and administrators. So welcome everyone. We have a variety of people at different places in their academic journey. So we will talk about different things and hopefully everyone will get something good from this session. All right, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is how much time to spend studying. We're going to be talking about study skills in this session, and one of the important things to know is how much time should you spend studying. And the standard definition for a US college credit is that you spend that 1 credit hour is equal to 3 to 4 hours of work. And most of the time that translates so that you spend 1 hour in class and you're expected to spend 2 to 3 hours outside of class studying. And that's a really important thing to know because you may not spend time in class like you should be studying, but the exams will look like you should have been studying for 2 to 3 hours outside of class for every credit. So if you take a 3 credit course, you probably have 3 hours in class, and you should be spending around 6 to 9 hours outside of class studying. So that's just some perspective to get you started here. Okay. So in this session, we're going to talk about study techniques. We're going to talk about what is the best time to study. We're going to talk about preview and review. We're going to talk about the Pomodoro technique. And then we're going to talk about creating visual aids or materials. So we have another poll for you. When is the best time to study? The poll should pop up. Tell us when is the best time for you to study. 3 to 4 hours per week, Ambrosia. For every credit though. So if it's 3 credits, it's 3 to 4 hours per credit. All right, we'll give you 1 more minute for the poll. And Janie just realized she has 12 credits, so she got a lot of work to do. All right, let's look at those poll results. Okay, so about 13% of you said the best time to study is early in the morning. 15% said morning. 10% said in the middle of the day. 17% said the afternoon. 31%, that's a clear winner, said in the evening between 5 and 9. And 14% of you said late at night between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. Okay, so the answer to this question is the best time for you to study, drum roll. So the best time for you to study is when you're most alert. And this will vary based on your circadian rhythms. Some of you will realize that in the morning, you are alert and you're ready to go and you can conquer the world. But by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, all you want to do is sit down in front of the TV. That's fine. And some of you are like, you're sloughing through the day. Everything feels so slow. And then around 6 p.m., you're like, I'm awake, I'm alert, I can conquer the world. So that will vary. And this will also change depending on the type of task that you do. So for example, for me, I worked in the lab for many years. I'm very good at like executing tasks, like doing things with my hands early in the morning. So what I do was that I plan my experiments the day before at the end of the day, because that's when I'm thinking the best, but I would execute the action early in the morning. So think about that for when you need time to think. Like for example, if you're working on a paper or a problem set, when are you most alert versus when you're doing something repetitive, folding laundry, cleaning the bathroom, and you don't necessarily have to be fully awake for that. So, to help you with this, I prepared some sample schedules just to give you an idea of what your study time might look like. So, for example, if you're an early bird, I saw a couple of you in the chat say that you're early bird. So I made a sample schedule where you are up at 6 a.m., you do your workout in the morning, you do your meditation, your devotions, whatever it is, for about an hour, and then you get into those books for about an hour before class. It doesn't feel like it's a long time, but it is very that chunk of time can be very effective, especially if it's part of your routine. Then we give you some time to do preview, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then, you go to class, you do some review after class. I put in some time for work if you work on campus or if you have a part-time job, some study time in the evening. And you'll notice that I did not give you anything after 6 p.m. because by 6 p.m., I know your brains are done. If you're an early bird, you are ready to wind down and go to bed. By contrast, we have people who are the night owls. So the night owls, I know the morning doesn't really work for you. So I tried to give you a class schedule that starts in the afternoon. I did push it a little bit with the 10:30 class on Tuesday and Thursday, but you have this class schedule that is in the afternoon, and then all of your study time is later in the evening because that's when you're most alert or have time. Um, and then I gave you a schedule for maybe if you work full time and you go to school part time. So let's say you work between 9 to 5. We can move on to the next slide. Um, if you work between 9 to 5, I gave you have to be up in the morning because you have to get ready for work. But I gave you that same morning study time, quiet time. You go to work, you do a little bit of preview over lunch, you get back to work, you take a breath, run some errands, get to class, and then you go to your classes in the evening and do some studying later. And for that schedule, I gave you both evening study time and morning study time. And you'll notice for all three of those schedules, I didn't give you a lot of like scheduled study time on the weekends because you also need time to rest and to be a person and to hang out with your friends and to join a club on campus and all of that. And those things are also important. You don't only go to school for the academics, you also go for the social experience and the ways that you'll grow as a person and not just as a student. So somebody asked in the chat, what is preview? Perfect, because we're going on to tell you what is preview. So preview review is a technique that combines repetition and consolidation in order to help you learn materials. So basically, preview is before class, you take some time to read over and familiarize yourself with the materials. It could be reading the PowerPoint for the day or reading the chapter of the week, etc., so that you see the information before class and you have an idea of what's coming up in class, so that when you're in your lecture or your workshop, you're not seeing the information for the first time. And then on the other hand, review is after your class, you take some time to read over your notes and the material covered in that day's class. You might reread the PowerPoint, you might try some practice problems, you might reread your notes that you made. And this is part of what's called consolidation, and it helps you remember the material better if you go back over it right after the class rather than waiting to study over the weekend. So this is a good way to get in small chunks of time that will work for your schedule, and also so that all of your study time isn't big chunks. Like these small chunks of time can be really, really effective. So let's talk about the Pomodoro method. So the Pomodoro method is a method of using study time with the breaks. So the idea is that you study for 25 minutes. The periods are short so that you can focus intensely. This is enough time to go through maybe 4 or 5 slides. You can work on a practice problem. Then you take a break for 5 minutes. You stretch, go to the bathroom, get a snack, take some deep breaths, And then after 3 to 4 rounds, you take a longer break of 15 or 30 minutes, and then you finish for the day. So that's really effective for your longer periods of studying. You get a chance to like really sit down and go over stuff without like taxing your brain. All right, so let's talk about making visual aids and materials. So creating your own visual aids really helps you solidify learning, right? Because if you have to make something, you have to understand it. You have to figure out how to lay it out. So seeing the material laid out in different ways, it will help you make new connections. And that can be making flashcards, it can be making charts, it can be making annotated diagrams or making drawings or even making a video if like that's something that's really easy for you. So like one way of creating a visual aid is after every topic or every lecture, you make a TikTok that summarizes the lecture in 2 minutes. Because in order to summarize it in 2 minutes, you have to understand what are the major points of the lecture. So depending on what kinds of courses you're taking would depend on like what visual aids would be best for you and also the best way that you learn. So one example of a visual aid is flashcards. These are great for learning discrete chunks of material. So if you're memorizing the amino acids, or if you're learning the elements on the periodic table, or if you're learning a step in a process or a definition, flashcards are great for that. So they can be physical, you can make them on index cards, or they can be digital and you can make them on something like Quizlet. So for example, you have this flashcard that's one side says and then on the other side says that C equals carbon. The atomic number for carbon is 6, and the atomic mass for carbon is 12. And you could do that if you have to learn the first 20 elements on the periodic table. That can be a helpful way to learn it. And then we're going to talk about active versus passive study tools. So passive study tools are great to start with or for quick review. So passive study tools are like your preview and review, right? You can watch a video, you can reread the notes, you can review your flashcards or your charts. And then we have active study tools, which are great to make sure that you really understand the core material and you can connect concepts to each other. So this is doing the practice problems, creating the flashcards or the charts, or teaching the concepts to someone else. If you can teach this to your grandma, you definitely know the concept. So this is what teaching is a really effective way to show that you have like really understood the material. All right, so to summarize, each credit hour is 3 to 4 hours of work per week. Study at the best time for you. Small strategic chunks of studying are effective. So using preview review or using the Pomodoro method. You can create study materials, especially visual ones. Those can be very helpful. And then use different methods depending on what you need. So maybe is that you just need to hear it again. So you record the lecture and you replay it at 2x speed later. Using active versus passive study tools can really help with that. And here's your reminder that if your school partners with Upswing, you can sign up for tutoring through Upswing. You have 24/7 access to tutors who are subject matter experts. You can go to Upswing and look for your school, and there's an article there that you'll get the link to so that you can sign up. And I will take your questions. You can ask me anything. Okay. Okay, so Evelyn has asked, do we read all the chapters of the textbook or skim? I think it depends. One, it depends on the course. Two, it depends on if this is the first time you're seeing this information in your life, or if this is like an expansion on something that you covered in another course or in high school. And three, depends kind of on your professor, because some professors really teach material like exactly from the textbook. The definition from the textbook is going to be on the quiz, and some of them say the textbook is there for your reference for you to read and understand. It's helpful to at least read through the major parts of the chapter, and then if there's a chapter that you really don't understand, take the time to like really go through that chapter and like make notes or flashcards or whatever on that chapter. And then Samuel asks, what about people who can be both a night owl and an early bird? Samuel, make a schedule that works for you. Like if you know that on Tuesdays, for some reason, you're always up early and you feel awake and alert on Tuesday mornings, then study early on Tuesdays, take a nap in the middle of the day, study late on Tuesday night. Like that's totally fine. The point of knowing what you are is to be able to use that to be effective in your studying. And then Gotham asked if we can get the deck. Yes, you will get the deck. Any other questions?
Shanique, I saw a few other questions in the chat, in the general chat. Is it okay if I send a few
Yes,
your
please ask.
okay. So Joan wants to know if you have any suggestions. What is the best way to study when there's a lot of reading or if you have a lot of chapters?
Okay. Um, I think, well, Joan, the answer to your question really depends on how much time you have. So I think if you're tight on time, I would read through the section headings to get an idea of what's in the chapter and then read through in detail the like bolded definitions, the summaries, etc. And then if there's something that you're like, I listened to this in lecture and I don't understand what this person is saying, and then you read that in more detail.
Edward has asked if you recommend an app for taking notes, and I've also seen some suggestions from participants about that in the chat.
Good. Yeah. Thanks for your suggestions. I don't have suggestions for an app. The app that you will use is the best app for you. So if it's your notes app, if it's a physical notebook, if it's literally just a Word document, if you are annotating the PowerPoint, whatever works for you is the best app to use.
Great. I see recommendations for OneNote and Note Taking Express in the chat.
Nice. And also one called Nebo. Okay, are there more questions from the chat? I see a couple of
Maybe
questions asking about balancing like having kids or like working full time with studying, and it's hard. Like I can't, there's no way for me to tell you that that will make it easy. It's gonna be hard. But I would say that wherever you have time, fit in time. It could be you're waiting in the school pickup line. It could be that you're up feeding and you're just like scrolling through the notes on your phone, or you keep the textbook next to the chair that you sit in to feed your baby. Like wherever you can make the time, especially when you find that you're alert, then make the time then.
okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And just a reminder that you will receive the recording of this webinar tomorrow, which is going to include all of the slides. So if there are any study techniques or any of those sample schedules that you want to review more closely on your own time, we'll be sure to get those to you. And remember that Upswing is here for you. If you are partnered with an Upswing school, please make sure that you're logging in to get tutoring. And thank you so much again.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, everyone.